There we are. We're joining today with Boni Hamilton, who's the author of the book for our book study today. And here's the title for the book, in case anyone has forgotten. We're talking about integrating technology in the classroom from an inclusive perspective, a universal design for learning focus, so that we can, just learn a little bit together. We really thank Boni for taking time out of her summer to dip into the book with us. I'll get Boni to introduce herself, and then Kendra and Susie, you can introduce yourselves as well. Okay, thanks.
Well, I am just delighted to be invited to have a conversation with you. I am currently a doctoral student getting a second doctorate, and am expecting to have my dissertation proposal approved within a month. But I have spent a number of years in the classroom, pre-K through college classrooms, and have worked with as a district instructional technology person, as well as in a school, helping teachers figure out how to integrate technology. And that's what's driven my decision to write a book.
Thank you, Boni. Kendra?
Hi, I'm Kendra Grant, and I'm here in Toronto. I'm an educational consultant. In the past, I was a teacher for many years and did a lot around assistive technology and instructional technology. And then I've also worked in the educational business aspect with my own professional learning company out of Portland, Oregon. And I just passed on the president of the Inclusive Learning Network role to Susie, who will introduce herself in a second. So that's really been my passion, has been not only assistive technology, but all kinds of technology and how that can support a variety of learners. So I think for me, reading the book's been really fun because it is really taking kind of the general ed approach, and then how does that support the variety of learners that come to us. So I'll pass that on.
I'm Susie Gronseth, and I am now the president of the Inclusive Learning Network. I've been part of the Inclusive Learning Network since its inception over a decade ago, and so this is going to be a fun year. I am on the faculty at University of Houston in Houston, Texas. This is my 5th year there. I have a doctorate in instructional systems technology. Started out working with students with emotional and behavioral disorders and specific learning disabilities. So my teaching degree is in elementary education and specific learning disabilities K-12 from Florida. But since then, I have worked in a variety of capacities, including as technology coordinator at the middle school and college levels, instructional designer, and now teaching in higher ed. So I like to see how we can use technology to support the learning needs of all learners, not necessarily just in education or just in with students who don't have identified special needs. I look at how we can use technology to reach learners who have barriers such as geographic barriers, so how we can use online tools, how we can reach learners who might have time constraints or multiple hats, particularly as adult learners. That's something that we deal with. And so I just look at how we can use tools to reduce barriers in all different kinds of contexts and capacities. So I'm looking forward to learning a few new tools in this study and a few new strategies.
Thank you, Susie. And I'm Helen Deward. I teach at the Faculty of education here in Ontario, and the topics that I focus on are teaching with digital technologies, digital teaching and learning, and media and digital literacies, and how we can weave those topics and structures into kind of all of the topics that teachers teach. So the focus I've got is more on how can I use this book within my teaching with new teachers that are up and coming. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Boni. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about how this book came to, into effect. I'm very interested in, the ideas and how you structured the framework with the chapters and how this whole thing just came about. So maybe that's a good place to start.
Well, I had a first book that I wrote that I had written about my experiences working in an elementary classroom or in an elementary school of 600 students. I went in having been with experience and licensing in the secondary level, but the principal at my children's school convinced me to be the technology person. And our agreement was I would co-teach with the 22 teachers. And we co-planned, we co-taught, and I walked into a place with 47 computers for 600 people. Well, more than 600 people, because most of the 47 computers were on teachers' desks or in a computer lab. And within 3 years, we had 300 computers that our 600 students could use, and they were all internet connected. So I had written about that and kind of what we did when we couldn't pay for anything. And then I realized that by the time a book gets to publication, it's dated if it's about technology anyhow. But ISTE had said, if you ever want to update this, you could. And I started looking at what did I learn from working with 22 teachers and then with 25 schools from a district level. What did I learn about how to help teachers who have a whole repertoire of experiences with technology, but none of them the same? How do I get them to move forward? And what were the tools that helped me connect with them? And I realized that there was nothing that had been written that I had seen that really could support pre-service teachers about thinking about where their path would go, what would work comfortably for them. There was nothing that I had seen that would help ed tech coaches. And then just that regular classroom teacher who says, well, I can do this, but I don't know what to do next. And I couldn't hold the hands of everybody. So I was doing a lot of professional development online in little webinars, which is, of course, not terribly effective. But it would at least encourage people. And the book came out of my saying, so if I could speak to everybody in education, what is it I want to tell them? And when I started to organize it, I realized, I started writing it just after I had finished my first doctorate. So when I worked on my first book, I knew nothing but instinct. And I went to get a doctorate because I wanted to know if there was any value to my instinct. When I started the second book, I had a lot of book knowledge about what educators were saying and what research was saying and all of that, and it was all a jumble. And in fact, I will tell you the first chapter took me 4 drafts before my writing group said to me, oh, now you sound like a real person and not like a university professor. But it was in organizing that I thought at the beginning I needed to have an understanding of some premises. And then after that, what I wanted to do was just take tools starting from the easiest things to use and moving each chapter toward more complex tasks in hopes that any teacher could find a chapter that connected with something they already knew and use that to find where in this chapter am I now and what might be the next step. Because baby steps we can do, but often an ed tech coach will say something like someone at ISTE said to me, I love Twitter and I can't get any of the teachers in my school to engage in Twitter with me. And she was speaking from her own passion, but she had all of these teachers who had different passions, and none of them had Twitter as a passion. So helping to get past that mindset that we all have to do it the same. I even see in the technology research that intervention programs where they go in and they try to build teacher capacity to use technology in an integrated fashion so often uses one approach for everyone. And I really think it has to be personalized one-to-one. So when Helen, you talk about letting somebody watch and then bringing somebody along to participate, that will make a difference. Having one successful experience can make a difference. So the whole thing behind the book was, I want to put in so many different kinds of voices and experiences that anyone reading it could find at least one thing. I knew from the beginning, and this book took 4 years to go from when I wrote it to when it was published. I knew that by the time it was published, the tools that I had mentioned would be just a drop in the bucket, that there would be lots of newer, greater things that I couldn't talk about. But if I could open the window, people could connect something I wrote about to a new tool that they had heard about and perhaps make their own connection. So that's where I started from. I did this, I've never done this before. I wrote this book in my 5-week winter break. So every day I sat down, I wrote 5,000 words. And at the end of 5 weeks, I had a book.
I find that very daunting. I blog a little bit, and it takes me so long just to craft and shape the words. So I'm just blown away with that. In 5 weeks, 5,000 words, you've got a book. So I find that quite amazing, Boni.
Well, it took 4 months prior to that 5 weeks for me to figure out my voice.
Mm-hmm. My comment would be, just listening to you, that you've really taken a bit of a universal design approach to your book, and that is that you've personalized it, that people can start where they are and choose what their passion is or what their interest is, and then their scaffolding. And I think that's really important for all learners, whether it's at the educator or in the classroom. So I like that approach. I think it works well. And I noticed that too going through, that I could see things that I already knew and then connect, for example, the photo essay, which I haven't really looked at or thought about before. So it was something that I could connect with what I know, what I'm passionate about, and then add to it. So I think that was really well done.
Yeah, I would add to that, as I was looking at the first chapter and you talk about teacher beliefs, that's a really tough way to begin your writing, because how do you talk about teacher beliefs without sounding really academic? Trying to make that accessible. But as we're looking at this text and thinking about universal design for learning, I like how we are talking about matching the tools with preferences of the teacher, not necessarily just focusing on student needs, because we have our own unique ways that we go about teaching. And I think that that is a valuable factor to consider when we're choosing tools. It's not just the task that needs to be accomplished in the classroom. It's trying to match personality with the kind of tool that would work with that. So when you give the example of Twitter and microblogging might work really well with the way that some people speak in short bursts, continuous flexibility, and then there's other people that prefer to write in longer compositions or have a networked blogging community, or write offline. I mean, it doesn't have to be a digital tool. So I think that is, as we're thinking about preparing future teachers or working with colleagues or for technology coaches, considering the personality of the teacher and the preferences of the teacher and trying to match the tool.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think that if a teacher isn't comfortable with the first thing they do, and they do something that they're not at all comfortable with and it goes poorly, they don't take another risk. But if they can start with something they know, and then gradually, and I hope all teachers do this gradually, so that students can choose from among the tools they know, then we have a much more open engagement among students as well. But kids will teach each other a lot about how to do anything. And I, school teachers, look, the kids have the time. Let them figure it out. And then you just you let them teach one another content. You know what it is they need to be able to demonstrate understanding, but they can find tools that will help them demonstrate it in ways that are rich. And I will tell you that my son hit middle school and did was supposed to do a book report. He chose to do a video book report, and his classroom teacher gave him an F. And he went after school and explained to her maybe this did exactly what she wanted. It just was done differently. Your mother needs to come in and talk to me. And so I went in to talk to her, and when he wasn't present, she said to me, well, I can't grade it because I can't understand it. You look at the content, because the content is what's important. And I don't want you to grade him on the technology. That was a vehicle for getting it to you. If it was important that he have the writing skills, because you didn't know whether he had the writing skills, it's okay. Say he has to handwrite it or word process or whatever. But if it is about then letting a tool you don't know, will you come in and share it with me? That honors what he knows, but it meets your needs. And when she asked him to show it, she got so excited that then she had him show it to the class, and then she had him show it to the principal, and then, it went on. But I don't know that she ever allowed another child to do that. And I think that when you need to control it, skills, and the goal wasn't to have them write, but rather to produce something that showed the content. So anyhow, that's, I think, important for teachers to know that it's the content they're looking at and not the glitz of a tool.
I think you said about, I think something like, you were going a little bit in and out, but the idea of, you know, giving up control. In other words, I often find as educators, we sometimes design our instruction in ways that we prefer. So we're good writers or we're good readers, and so we design the activity, the task, the assessment in a way that we would find preferable. And so I think your idea there is having teachers understand that exactly it's really the thinking and the learning that you want to represent. And you're right, there could be times when you want students to write a 5-paragraph essay. I'd argue that then you give them technology to support that if they need it, whether that's word prediction or those sorts of tools. And then if it is really about the ideas and the content and what did you learn, you can tell me that in any way. There's a variety of ways to do that. And it was interesting, my nephews just came back from a camp in which they got their grade 12 English in 2 weeks. So 110 hours in 2 weeks. But they were so excited because they did spoken word, they did podcasts, they did comedy routines, they did essays, they did short stories, they did all kinds of things with and without technology. And I think those choices for them got them excited about the process because they weren't just stuck in one format. So I think that point that you make is really important as educators, that we don't just kind of narrow, even when it comes, I think, to technology, that we don't just choose the things that we like, whether it's Twitter, whatever, and that we give those options to learners.
I also find that, and I apologize when I cut out, I swear I tell my husband his company must choose this time of day to push something to his computer, because I find this happens to me. I did not specifically address assistive technologies. I did not specifically address, I addressed multilingual learners, simply because I've done a lot of recent study on that, but I did not address that variation in the classroom, and I'm interested in learning from your book study how that could have been added or improved. I have some ideas, but I don't have them all. I will tell you, when I started at the elementary school, the classes, I was co-planning with teachers. You know, I had this idea of what we were going to teach, and a 5th grade classroom came in, and we were doing a writing activity, and the students, I didn't know any of them, my very first time of seeing them. And one student was just sitting there, and I said, "No, this is what we're doing. You need to be involved with us." And the classroom teacher came over and said, "No, he has an IEP, so he's not really part of our class." And I don't hit anger quickly, normally. But I looked at the teacher and I said, "He is part of my class, and he needs to learn the very same kinds of things others do, and he needs the opportunity to show what he knows. And there's no reason this assignment can't be something that he can be involved in." And the teacher said, but I don't really teach him, and we're doing language arts, and he goes to another classroom. I said, "I don't care. Language arts is something we all learn." And so from that point on, you know, that day in that classroom, I helped that student get started on a project that had some parallels to what the class was doing. But then I went to every single teacher and said, I don't care who the child is, we are going to have those children, all children, involved in what we're doing. And it was amazing because what I saw happen is when I started treating all children as important contributors to what we were doing in that classroom, the teachers changed some of how they viewed their responsibility to those children. And I never knew which children were IEP and which weren't, which children were gifted and which weren't, except sometimes when I saw their final product. And I think technology differentiates very well so that students can have the same basic expectations and it can be adapted to where their level is. And I hope that other teachers understand that all, and my statement then was always, all children are mine. I have responsibility for all of them, and they're yours too. And I was concerned, and I've not been in enough schools where I've been able to see whether that continues to be a problem in other schools or whether it is handled well with technology. I'd love to hear what you say about how technology is used to help all children feel like they are part of what goes on.
And I'm sure that as we go into this, we'll see a little bit more of the conversations in the Google Doc and perhaps on Twitter with some of the the people that are involved in the book study, because there's a vast range of experiences from the people that have signed up. So I'm hoping that they will engage in that conversation and knowing that you're very interested in hearing what they say and listening to their voices. So I'll encourage them, if they're watching now or watching this later, just to make sure that they're dipping in and diving in, swimming in, and joining in that conversation in some of the digital spaces that we've got set up for the book study. So thank you, Boni. I'm very aware that we're taking your valuable summer time. Is there any last thoughts, Kendra or Susie? I know that we're going to meet with you again, Boni, at the end of our book study in a couple of weeks. And it'll give us another chance and hopefully have some other participants from the book study involved with some questions that are more related to the content and text in the book. But I really appreciate you taking the time. So Kendra or Susie, if you have some final thoughts or questions, and then we'll let Boni head off into the Friday sun.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was really informative, and I think we don't have time to answer your question that you put out there, but I think I'm going to think about it. I think UDL answers some of what you were discussing there about what is a disability, how do we perceive learners, and how we maybe label them and categorize them. So I'm going to give some thought to that, and then perhaps in the Google Plus community and on Twitter I'll put some of my thoughts out there as well. So thank you. That was excellent. I enjoyed it.
Yes, I would echo that too. Thanks very much, Boni, for taking the time to talk with us and answer our questions about the book that you've written. And as I think about technology use with learners who have identified disabilities, I think the words of options, of different modalities come to mind. If there is a deficit in a sense, one of the senses, then technology affords opportunities to take in, to practice, to express information in another sense. And so I think that that's a strength of of incorporating technology into teaching and learning. So I look forward to discussing this more, and we'll talk again in the next session.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
And we look forward to the next one. I'm going to end the broadcast, and we can stay on just to say some final thoughts before we head out.